Hey everyone, welcome back. Today let's talk about another potentially important moment in AI after China's Deepseek. Last week, a new AI product called Manus appeared online and once again shocked the tech world. Right now, every AI enthusiast is trying to get an invite code to actually use it. The team claims it's the first ever general AI agent that not only thinks but also delivers results. On Manus' website, you can see that its use cases almost cover every aspect of your life and work. It can code, analyze data, plan a trip, and operate a store analysis. So if it's really as good as it advertises, we are indeed seeing a true singularity on the road to AGI. It's being talked about as potentially another watershed moment for artificial intelligence, similar to what we saw with Deepseek. And Manus is in fact built by another Chinese company as well, just like Deepseek. So now, why is it such a big deal? Agentic AI is widely considered to be the next frontier for AI startups and investment. And this isn't just relevant for primary market. Secondary markets and big tech companies are all looking at agentic AI developments to justify the sky-high valuations we're seeing for AI stocks like NVIDIA, cloud service providers like Amazon, and large model providers like Google and OpenAI. But there's an interesting debate happening in the AI community right now. On one hand, you have people arguing that vertical agentic AI is the way to go. These are specialized agents designed for specific tasks and workflows. On the other hand, there's this idea that we could simply build a generic AI agent that works for literally everything, all tasks, all scenarios, both work and life. And you can imagine that if the second approach is actually achievable, we might be looking at something approaching true AGI. And that's exactly why Manus' launch seems so potentially significant, because they're explicitly positioning the product as the general purpose agent. But since its launch, Manus has faced quite a bit of controversy, despite all of the groundbreaking aspects they are advertising. Many people have complained that it's nearly impossible to get an activation code to actually use the product. Most of the demo use cases we've seen so far either directly come from Manus team videos or from a limited number of influencers online. And I've heard mixed reviews from people I know who actually got the invite codes. For instance, a friend of mine in finance said that Manus AI stock market analysis looks very nice, but lacks real depth. It's like something what a junior analyst or intern would produce, rather than something you could trade on confidently. So is this really a game changer or just clever marketing? Today, I thought we'd cut through the hype and marketing to see what Manus AI is really about. Luckily, I managed to get my hands on an invitation code, so let's put Manus AI to test today. Let's find out if it's really worth the hype. So I'm going to test Manus AI on 3 use cases that cover many aspects of its abilities, including searching information online, aggregating results, reasoning, writing, charting, interpreting charts, and coding. I think the problem with many of the use cases on Manus' official website is that while they do look very nice and comprehensive, they can seem a little bit shallow and superficial in real work settings. What I want to find out today is how Manus AI actually performs in real work scenarios and to what degree it can deliver working solutions beyond just nice looking PowerPoints or Excel sheets. So all 3 testing scenarios I've picked today are real use cases I deal with every day at work. And I know these tasks well enough so I can properly evaluate how good Manus really is. Also, if it breaks down or follows the wrong procedure in this process, I am not going to do any human intervention because after all, the point is to test if it's truly autonomous as it advertises. So let's get started. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at what Manus look like together. This is Manus. Upon the first glance, it's just like another ChatGPT, very similar to any other large language model chatbot on the market. It does provide a lot of the existing use cases here. For instance, you have research, you have scenarios for your data analysis, life, education, productivity. So it actually looks very comprehensive. But for the first task, I want to challenge Manus to do a real market analysis. I am going to ask Manus to do a comprehensive stock market analysis on the recent US equity sell-off. This is definitely a question with real world implication. Lots of people are definitely wondering what factors should be considered, whether this is a buying opportunity or is the market going to decline further. So let's ask Manus to conduct that market analysis for us. So this is what I'm going to do. I want you to perform a stock market analysis on the recent US equity market sell-off. Could you provide a comprehensive analysis of different factors, including recent news and valuations of the US stocks, potential geopolitical risks, and technical indicators of the market data? You can use S&P 500 as a proxy of US equity for the purpose of this analysis. I want you to summarize whether we could be approaching a bottom, meaning a buying opportunity as for investors. All right, so let's send this request to Manus and see how it performs. And it says, I will help you perform a comprehensive stock market analysis, and it's going to focus on S&P 500 as a proxy. So first, it got the problem right. It's solving the right problem, and that's always a nice first step. So it's going to analyze various factors, including recent news, valuations, geopolitical risks, and technical indicators. Okay, so now it tries to connect to the data sources. It's going to get stock charts, stock insights, and get what analysts are saying of a stock. Okay, so basically what it does is that it takes your question and it breaks it down to subtasks that needs to be done. And it seems like it's writing a code. Oh, okay, it's actually making a new directory for my project. And now it attempts to gather recent market data for the S&P 500. So in this step, I would assume it's going to make API call to publicly available market data providers like Yahoo or Google. I don't know which data sources it's going to use. I think what's interesting is that it actually creates a to-do file for you, and you can literally see what steps are being completed in this to-do file, which include data collection, research, analysis, and finally the report creation. And Manus AI is basically writing code for each step to perform the necessary tasks. Okay, so it wrote a Python program, and it knows to install necessary packages for the program to run if the package is not installed already. And it has its own terminal to output any necessary logs. So I think what's interesting is it looks like Manus is running on its own computer. It's running on its own server. It's basically replicating a workstation of any, for instance, knowledge worker. Say if you are a programmer and this is what you actually do. If you want to do this analysis, you create a folder for your projects, it create a to-do, and then you write code for each steps, and you look at your console for any output. So I think it's interesting that Manus is replicating the exact workflow of what a human knowledge worker would actually be doing in real work scenario. Okay, so now it's been 3 minutes since the task started, and we're still stuck at the step where it tries to gather the recent market data. Okay, so while we are waiting, why don't we try the second task, and we'll go back to this one to see if it can, successfully collect all the data and generate the report for us. But for now, since it looks like the waiting time is going to last for a while, let's move on to the second task, and we will go back to the first task once we are finished. Okay, so for the second task, I want Manus to read some data and help us write some analysis and quick updates of the data insights. First, let's feed an Excel sheet to Manus to see if it can actually read the data. So this is something that I got from my work. This is the offline payment data for Lululemon in China. It basically tells you what Lululemon sales looks like in China via offline channels. And what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna feed this Excel sheet to Manus and ask it to write a short data insights update. And this is what we do every single day for our institutional clients at our company. So I'm gonna see whether it can read the data Excel sheets and produce actionable insights, and see whether it could potentially actually replace our junior analysts at the company that perform this task. Cool, so let's grab this Excel sheet. Let's do, can you generate a short paragraph to update the most important insights in this Excel sheet? And I'm gonna tell Manus that the target audience who is going to receive this insight are investors of Lululemon who wish to understand how Lululemon performs in China market. Okay, so let's send this to Manus, and hopefully it's gonna run a little bit faster than the previous task because we're not gonna search anything on the internet. All the informations are provided here. Okay, so I have reached maximum daily usage limit during the beta testing period. Please try again tomorrow. And if we look at the previous task, it also got interrupted. It's asking me to restart my computer for Manus to automatically re-execute this task. Okay, so now I actually need to reset my computer. So this is also something that I didn't get to know before I actually tested. It doesn't allow you to run two tasks at once, but since it's just, beta version. So this is a bit annoying because even if you get the code, you don't get to test a bunch of tasks you have. But this is also good to know, right? This is unfiltered first impression. I just want to show what it can and cannot do in the most genuine sense. Okay, so I managed to get a different activation code. And let's see if we can at least try one more scenario. Cool, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upload the data profile of the Lululemon sales in China. And again, I'm gonna ask Manus to generate a short paragraph to update the most important insights in this Excel. This question is actually pretty vague. I only asked Manus to deliver the most important insights that are valuable to the investors. And I didn't explicitly say the most important insight is the sales or, the year-on-year growth or something else. So Manus is first going to interpret intellectually what piece of information is actually important. And then let's see if it can actually extract the correct information based on the input data. I'm actually curious to see whether it can interpret the data, because if you look at the original data, it has multiple sheets and we have a tab explaining what each data metric is. So it has to be intelligent enough to first read the data description and figure out, what each metric means, and then go to a separate tab to look at actual data, and finally to generate an analysis. That's what a real human knowledge worker would do in a real world setting. So I'm curious to see if Manus is intelligent enough to do that. It's trying to calculate average daily sales. It's trying to do a trend analysis on 30-day trend. That's interesting. Okay, so it seems like there is some error. It continues to identify key insights from Lululemon's China market despite analysis error. It's drafting a concise paragraph. So it did the analysis despite error. And okay, so it is now creating the file with the insights from the data. I'm actually very looking forward to see the output. I mean, if this is successful, we can replace our junior analyst with Manus, right? The final draft reads like this. Lululemon continues to demonstrate robust performance in the Chinese market, with mainland China revenue reaching 2.27 billion yuan in the fiscal third quarter of 2024. The brand maintains strong year-on-year growth of 36%, and we can check that number later to see if the calculation is actually correct. Blah, 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 with the average transactional value reflecting the brand's premium positioning and continued consumer willingness to spend on high-quality aesthetic apparel despite broader economic headwinds in the Chinese market. Let's just double-check a few things to see if it actually reads the data correctly. So this is the original data that I fed to Manus. Yeah, this is actually right. So the reported revenue by Lululemon is 2.27 billion in mainland China. So it got it right. And the year-on-year growth seems also correct. The reported YOY growth is 36%. Okay, so first, I think it's great that Manus actually managed to extract the correct information from a multi-tab Excel sheet based on my instruction. And I didn't even give it a very, specific instruction. For instance, like I didn't ask it to find this piece of information in a particular tab. It's smart enough to know which information is important and where to find that piece of information. So this is actually very impressive. And now let me try if I can follow up with a further question. Can you please create a chart, actually create a line chart of the year-on-year growth of monthly offline sales of Lululemon. So I think the tricky part about this prompt is that it not only needs to do the plot, but it also have to perform the calculation, because as you can see here in the original data sheet, it only contains the raw sales number. It doesn't really provide the year-on-year growth. So it first needs to compute the year-on-year growth before it can plot the chart. It's calculating year-on-year growth rates. And in the meantime, we can perform the same analysis to double check, right? Because we want to know if the year-on-year calculation is actually correct. So let's just simply do a quick year-on-year. All right, so here is our line chart. And what's this guy? Wait, are those the same basically? Okay, so it seems like these two charts are practically the same, but the second one marks the actual numbers. For Jan 2025 is 48%, but in reality, it should be 16%. Let me just double check if I got it right. Okay, so sorry, Manus, I actually did the wrong calculation here. Okay, so that's actually correct. So 48.7, 49, this should be October. Manus has 21.6%, and that's correct. It's 22 right here. And for July 2024, Manus has 25%, and that's also correct. Wow, so this actually seems very impressive. If you look at the line chart, all the year-on-year sales growth are correct, and it has generated some really nice charts for data visualization, and even calculates an additional average growth trend line for you. So yeah, I think the second task case is actually really impresses me. And now I want to go back to our US equity market analysis and see if it managed to Okay, so we're still stuck at resetting the computer, so unfortunately I don't think we're moving forward with this particular task case today. Why don't we just simplify this problem a bit? I wanted to, can you perform a stock market analysis of the recent US equity sell-off? I want you to analyze from the technical indicator's perspective and see whether we are seeing signs or signals of the bottom. Oops. Okay, so now instead of trying to do a very comprehensive analysis altogether, I'm just gonna focus on the technical indicator for now. So let's send this request to Manus. It's now starting to do the analysis for us. Let's actually check out the to-do file together. Okay, so it collects the market data for major indices, and then it analyzes the technical indicators, and it's smart enough to know things like moving average, RSI, MACD are important technical indicators to look at. Okay, so now Manus has successfully collected market data for all major US indices. Great. We can actually take a look at the Python code Manus has generated for us to analyze the technical indicators. Looks legit to me. But the problem is, where did it get the technical indicator? Does it calculate them from scratch? Calculate technical. Okay, so it actually calculates the technical indicator from scratch based on the market data. That's impressive. Wow, I think this is actually very impressive. Manus actually does a really comprehensive analysis into different sectors of the US market instead of just NASDAQ or S&P 500. It also looks into the financials, energy, healthcare. If you want to gauge whether the US market is heading toward a recession, you don't just look at the technology. You also look at cyclical sectors like finance or consumer discretionary. So I think this is actually very impressive. It knows that it needs to look at more industries, and it even knows that what are the ETF, the representative ETF for each particular industry. So this actually looks very, very impressive. Okay, so I think the problem as identified by Manus is that the Yahoo Finance API is returning an error message request too many instead of actual market data. And I don't think this is a problem with Manus per se, because that's
a common problem, and let's just see if Manus is smart enough to adjust the code to, for instance, place a sleep for several minutes somewhere in the code to stop requesting the data as frequently as it does right now. Right, so it's modifying data collection approach to implement rate limiting and avoid API throttling issues. Great. At least it knows what is the right thing to do, right? But it still fails. So now it's trying to pivot the approach. And it seems the alternative approach is that it's looking for other informations, for instance, like the news. Wow, so it actually opens the browser. So I think what it does is that it runs everything on a simulated server. It replicates exactly what a human would do. Wow. This is impressive. So it can actually try to complete the puzzle like a human being. I wonder if it will succeed. It did. It did succeed. Since it failed to get the actual market data and the technical indicator, now it's just going to look for, news articles to see if any news articles specifically mentioned things like MACD or RSI indicators, and it's just going to extract that information and put it back into the report instead of just calculating everything all by itself. And I think that's fair, right? If you don't have access to free market data, what else can you do? So after running for 17 minutes, we have finally got the report from Manus. So let's take a look at the comprehensive market analysis generated by Manus. Upon the first glance, I actually quite like the structure of this report. It has an executive summary and it's able to identify the main factors that is driving the market sell-off. And now it moves on to break down each individual technical indicator and analyze what each indicator say about this market. So let's just read the executive summary for real quick. This report provides a comprehensive technical analysis of the recent US market sell-off. And based on our analysis, we find that US equity market have experienced significant technical damage with major indices breaking below their 200-day moving average. And that is a correct piece of information. While some conditions that typically precede a bottom may not be developing, clear bottoming signals have not yet emerged in the technical indicators. And wow, so it even gives you a to-do list. So this is a list of the tasks we have completed so far with Manus, and this is actually very satisfying to look at. I really like check off your to-do list, right? Okay, so my first impression of Manus on the stock market analysis task is generally positive, although it fails to extract the actual stock market data, but I think that's mostly due to the fact that there isn't a lot of free market data service available online. But for someone to actually trade based on the information, I think more analysis has to go into that. However, if you are new to the stock market, this is a really good starting point. So I'm actually not going to try the third coding challenge today because I'm running out of the quota. But if you like this video, please give us a comment in the section below, and I'm happy to do some more advanced coding challenge in a separate video. Okay, so this is my first impression of using Manus. I think it's still quite far away from true AGI, and it's certainly not as autonomous as they advertise. But there are definitely some good aspects. For instance, I think it's impressively automatic at gathering information from multiple sources. It does produce well-structured outputs, and the quality of its writing and coding is generally good. I think the most impressive part is that it knows how to handle errors and exceptions. It knows how to automatically try again or try a different way. I think that's a crucial step forward to handling complex real-world tasks compared to other large language models, for instance, like ChatGPT, which basically need you to ask it to try again if anything breaks. Of course, this is actually not a revolutionary technology because there were already many precursors of automatic workflow long before AI applications went viral globally. But there are definitely aspects that need improvement for it to become fully automatic. So I don't think it's replacing knowledge worker altogether at this point, and there were definitely moments where I had to intervene to guide it toward a better solution. However, I wouldn't go ahead and call it a marketing scam. I know for sure that building a product needs attention to detail and lots of back and forth. Although the general purpose AI sounds very comprehensive and one fits all, but the building process of that product is just the opposite. It will take a lot of detours and problem fixing before it can really work.
And I think during this process, a lot of the dirty work isn't that intelligent and smart. It's just manual human effort that needs time. So what we're seeing right now is an MVP product that illustrates the concept, core functionality, and vision of what Manus team is trying to build for the future. And as a beta version and prototype of tomorrow's product, I think it's good enough. I personally don't believe general purpose AI agents will be the future for 2B applications. Vertical AI agents should be more suitable. And my rationale for that is actually simple. As long as there are humans, there will be surprises and hierarchy. So basically stuff that cannot be handled by any universal intelligence. Well, unless true AGI is coming, but in that case, I think we're all going to be replaced. But in that case, why do we as human beings need to exist at all, right? Okay, but that's just some of my existential crisis thoughts. So coming back to Manus, I think what they're building looks more promising for broader 2C scenarios. I would actually think of it as a rival to search engines, and I can see it replacing many entry-level knowledge workers in different industries who mostly perform tasks like collecting and organizing available information or building and testing initial code for a bigger projects. I don't see it replacing vertical workflows within specific organizations. And I think, in fact, if you want to go deep in an organization, you can't be too generic. You'll have to deal with a mess that got piled up over the years. Even though not being able to get a code easily seems very annoying and fishy, I think the team is intentionally choosing to selectively work with alpha users and hone in their use cases. Given limited resources and budget, the team has to work smartly because for a product with such vision to run sustainably, they need to know which problems have the best potential for commercialization and what problems to tackle first. It's actually smart to build with users instead of trying to shoot for everything all at once. So now, for such a broad scope of problems Manus is trying to tackle, I think an interesting question is to actually think about how the ROI is going to look for the Manus product. Does it rely on ads like search engines, or is it going to charge a monthly subscription fee going forward? Those are the questions I've been thinking about, but I obviously don't have clear answers yet. I am happy to discuss with you in the comment section below. So in conclusion, I think the product certainly comes with an ambitious version. I am genuinely curious to see how it develops. More broadly speaking, I am fascinated by the evolution of general purpose AI agents. If it's not Manus AI, I am sure someone else will take on the challenge as well. Okay, and now I have some closing thoughts for our subscribers at Baiguan. Since we are a channel focusing on China investment and business insights, I want to share a few thoughts on how Manus could affect China's tech investment scene. Manus team just announced a collaboration with Alibaba's Tianwen team, and they plan to work together on open source large language models in the future. Right now, I don't think it will materially impact the revenue of Alibaba or any other Chinese companies at this time, because not that many requests are being made from Manus AI yet. However, I think it's a good step toward building downstream AI applications. And the long-term implication is very simple. The more people use downstream AI applications, the more revenue for upstream companies such as cloud service providers, data centers, and large language model companies. Eventually, these upstream companies will need lots of application to justify their high valuations. But in the short term, I think it's a nice sentiment boost for the recent rally in Chinese tech stock. But objectively speaking, I certainly don't think it's another Deepseek moment just yet. The product is still in a very early stage. It wants to be fully autonomous, but right now it still needs lots of human intervention if you want it to actually replace human labor in work settings. For personal learning scenarios, I think it's an amazing tool that can really help you get ahead and complete knowledge graphs for things you don't already know. But from a commercial perspective, I'm not sure how many individual users would actually use it on a regular basis if the service is paid. There are also skepticism toward how groundbreaking Manus technology really is. For instance, there are already some other Chinese teams who have built open source versions of Manus replica in just a few days. Therefore, many people are claiming that Manus is nothing more than a wrapper around existing large language models with no real barriers to entry. And my take on that is, yes, maybe at this stage it is just that. And practically there's no barrier to replicate what Manus can do at the code level. But creating an application that truly delivers working solution requires tons of trials and errors and accumulated use cases.
There's also marketing, cost management, funding, company operations, talent acquisition. All that aspects matters in this competition. Those are all barriers and assets that a company can leverage in the long run. Just think of Uber, for instance. It's a simple business model. Practically any computer science graduate could make an Uber app in a few days. But this doesn't mean that all of them are going to create billion-dollar companies. There's more to it than just the tech when you look at a product from a business perspective. Manus founder Xiao Hong is a serial entrepreneur with years of experience in the field. Most of his past ventures have focused on building applications that integrate existing models into the downstream products rather than developing proprietary models. Previously, he launched an AI-powered web browser called Monica that's an all-in-one AI personal assistant, which has gained over 3 million active users worldwide. And this time, he and his team are targeting overseas market directly, again, to avoid head-on competition with other China tech giants. He's a very different kind of entrepreneur compared to, for instance, Deepseek's founder. If you're interested in the stories behind China's tech entrepreneurs, please give this video a like. If we hit 100 likes, I'm gonna make a separate video diving into the story behind Manus founder. That's it for today, everyone. I hope this walkthrough of Manus AI has been helpful in cutting through some of the hype and giving you a more grounded perspective on what this technology can do and cannot do right now. If you found this content helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more on-the-ground China insights like this. Please drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear your experience with Manus AI if you've had the chance to try it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.